December 18, 1944, Plötzensee Prison, Berlin, 6:47 a.m. The executioner's hands are shaking. In 12 years of service to the Third Reich, he sent 2,891 people to their deaths in this room. Communists, Jews, deserters, resistance fighters. He's watched them all break, begging, weeping, collapsing at the knees when the guards dragged them to the hooks. But the man standing before him now, stripped to the waist, hands bound with piano wire, is smiling. Captain Jan Kubiš doesn't look at the 8 meat hooks bolted to the ceiling beam. He's looking past them through the brick walls towards something the executioner can't see. His lips are moving. Later, the guard closest to him will report he was reciting poetry in Czech, the same verse over and over. The Gestapo had calculated everything, the timing, the publicity, the message this execution would send to every resistance cell, from Prague to Paris. This is what happens when you defy the Reich. They had miscalculated exactly one thing. Jan Kubiš was already a ghost, and ghosts can't die twice. The Nazis thought hanging him would break the resistance. They were wrong. To understand what's about to happen, in that Berlin execution chamber, we need to go back 32 months, to the moment Jan Kubiš became the most dangerous man the Third Reich had never heard of. May 27, 1942, Prague, Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia, 10:32 a.m. The Mercedes-Benz 320 Cabriolet B rounds the hairpin turn at Kirchmeier Boulevard doing 48 kilometers per hour. The morning sun glints off its polished black hood. In the back seat, surrounded by leather and Reichsadler insignia, sits SS Obergruppenführer Reinhard Heydrich, architect of the final solution, acting protector of Bohemia and Moravia, and the third most powerful man in Nazi Germany. His driver, SS Oberscharführer Klein, notices the tram stopped ahead. Standard security procedure dictates slowing down at choke points, but they're running late. Heydrich has a flight to Berlin at noon. Klein maintains speed. The man in the gabardine coat standing at the tram stop has been waiting 47 minutes. His name is Josef Gabčík, 28 years old, former Czechoslovak Army sergeant, current agent of the British Special Operations Executive. In his briefcase, a Sten submachine gun disassembled into 3 pieces. 20 meters to Gabčík's left, behind a lamppost, Jan Kubiš watches the Mercedes approach. He's 29, same background, same training at the SOE facility in RSS, Scotland, same impossible mission. Operation Anthropoid. Target, Heydrich. Success probability, according to British intelligence, 12%. Gabčík steps into the street, pulls the Sten from his briefcase, squeezes the trigger. Click. The firing pin strikes an empty chamber. Misfire. The weapon, British manufactured, parachuted with them into Czechoslovakia 4 months ago, as jam. Klein sees the gun, slams the brakes, reaches for his holster. Jan Kubiš says 4 seconds before Klein gets his weapon clear, 4 seconds before Heydrich, who carries a Luger and has the reflexes of a trained fencer, processes what's happening. 4 seconds to change history. He pulls the modified anti-tank grenade from his coat. British issued, but he's packed it with additional shrapnel himself, nails, razor blades, and fragments of a broken hacksaw. The addition violates SOE protocol, but protocol didn't account for bulletproof Mercedes chassis plating. The throw is perfect, high arc. The grenade detonates against the right rear wheel. The explosion blows out 3 windows in the adjacent apartment block. Shrapnel perforates the Mercedes body in 47 places. A jagged piece of steel, later identified as part of the car's own fender, drives upward through the seat back and into Heydrich's lower spine, lodging fragments of leather, uniform fabric, and horsehair into the wound. Kubiš's own modification. The hacksaw blade slices open his face from his right eyebrow to his jawline. He's blind with blood, deaf from the concussion. But he runs. Behind him, Reinhard Heydrich, the butcher of Prague, Hitler's golden boy, climbs out of the smoking Mercedes with his Luger drawn, takes 3 staggering steps, and collapses face first onto the cobblestone. 8 days later, septicemia from the embedded debris kills him, and Jan Kubiš disappears into legend. May 27, 1942, 11:15 a.m. Gestapo headquarters, Petschek Palace, Prague. It's the Standartenführer Heinz Panwitz receives the news in his 3rd-floor office. Heydrich down. Assassins escape. His coffee goes cold in his hand. Panwitz is Gestapo, not the sadistic thugs Americans imagine. He's former Munich police, detective division. With 17 years of criminal investigation experience, he's caught serial killers, cracked smuggling rings before the party. He was simply good at his job. Now his job is hunting ghosts. Within 6 hours, Panwitz has mobilized 847 Gestapo and SS personnel. He declares a state of emergency, Ausnahmezustand. Every road out of Prague is blocked. House-to-house searches begin in Liban district, where witnesses heard the explosion. 23 people are arrested in the first sweep. None know anything. Panwitz institutes what he calls decimation protocol. For every day the assassins remain free, he executes 30 Czech civilians, randomly selected, publicly shot in Wenceslas Square. The math is simple. Create pressure, make the Czech people themselves hunt their own resistance. Someone will break. June 2nd, 1942, 6 days after the assassination. The interrogation subject in room 4 is Karel Kurda, age 31, low-level resistance courier, picked up in a random suite near Prague's main railway station. He's been questioned for 14 hours. No food, no water, no sleep. Panwitz doesn't touch him, doesn't need to. Your mother lives at Rybnikny Street, 32, Panwitz says, reading from a file. Your sister Anna works at the textile mill. She has 3 children. The youngest is 5 months old. Kurda's eyes flicker, just for a second. We shoot 30 people tomorrow, Panwitz continues. 30 the day after. 30 every day until someone shows civic responsibility. He closes the file. Or you could tell me about the church. 17 minutes later, Kurda talks. Not about Kubiš directly. He doesn't know where the assassins are, but he knows the network, the safe houses, the resistance protocol, and he knows about Father Vladimir Petrek and the Church of St. Cyril and Methodius in Newtown. June 18th, 1942, 4:17 a.m. 700 Waffen-SS soldiers surround the Orthodox cathedral. Panwitz has learned there are 7 resistance fighters inside, hiding in the crypt. He doesn't know for certain if Kubiš is among them. But the math works. He offers terms through a loudspeaker. Surrender, face trial. The siege lasts 2 hours. The resistance fighters respond with gunfire. 3 SS men wounded. Panwitz orders the assault. What happens next becomes known in Czech resistance circles as the Massacre of the 7. But it isn't a massacre. It's a battle. Inside that crypt, 7 men with 4 pistols, 840 rounds of ammunition, and 2 grenades hold off an SS battalion for 3 hours and 47 minutes. They flood the crypt. The fighters build barricades from communion benches. They fire tear gas. The fighters soak their shirts in holy water and breathe through the fabric. They blow the door with explosives. The fighters collapse the entrance tunnel. At 7:04 a.m., the gunfire stops. When the SS finally break through, all 7 men are dead. Suicide. Their last bullets reserved for themselves. Jan Kubiš is identified by his fingerprints and the distinctive scar across his face from the grenade blast. Panwitz personally examines the body. Photographic documentation, dental records cross-referenced with SOE files. Obtained through intelligence channels, there is 0 doubt. Jan Kubiš is dead. The Gestapo declare victory. Heydrich is avenged. The Prague uprising is crushed. Hitler sends Panwitz a personal commendation. The file is closed. But 29 months later, in December 1944, someone with Jan Kubiš's name, rank, and SOE serial number is arrested in occupied Poland, leading a resistance cell, carrying forged papers that shouldn't exist, speaking fluent German with a Berlin accent he never had before. And that's when the impossible becomes a question that will haunt Panwitz for the rest of his life. What if they got it wrong? October 3rd, 1944, Krakow, German-occupied Poland, 9:34 p.m. The man calling himself Heinrich Wald has been operating a black market fuel depot for 6 months. Wehrmacht officers buy petrol at 30% markup. Everyone knows he's crooked, which makes him trustworthy. A crook won't risk his profits reporting you to the Gestapo. What the Wehrmacht doesn't know, every 5th fuel can has been diluted with pine resin, 20% solution, enough to cause gradual engine degradation, not catastrophic, not obviously sabotage, just bad fuel. Thousands of vehicles slowly breaking down across the Eastern Front. Heinrich speaks perfect German because he learned it from his mother. Born in Sudetenland, German-Czech bilingual, his papers are immaculate. His story is airtight. He even drinks with SS officers at the Crystal Bar on Tuesday nights, laughs at their jokes. The Gestapo tail him for 3 weeks and find nothing suspicious. Except one small problem: Heinrich Wald doesn't exist before June 1942. October 14th, 1944, 3:22 a.m. The arrest happens fast. 4 Gestapo agents, no warning. They find the shortwave radio hidden in a false wall behind his kitchen stove. The codes the contact schedule, the maps marking Wehrmacht fuel depots across Poland and eastern Germany. And they find something else, a small leather journal, water-damaged, containing poems in Czech. On the inside cover, written in faded ink, Jan Kubiš, Praha, 1941. The interrogation lasts 11 days. They use everything. Sleep deprivation, beatings, psychological torture, threatening fictional family members, fabricating false confessions from fictional associates. The man who calls himself Heinrich Wald doesn't break, doesn't even bend. But neither does he deny being Jan Kubiš. He simply smiles and says, "If I'm a dead man, how can you kill me again?" The file reaches Berlin. Pernwitz, now Obersturmbannführer, personally reviews it. The fingerprints don't match, but the subject's hands show signs of severe chemical burns consistent with explosives handling. The facial structure is similar, but not identical, but 2 years of underground living, malnutrition, and one documented combat injury could explain that. The dental records are inconclusive, but the poems in the journal, those match word for word. The same verses Kubiš carried during Operation Anthropoid, the verses he was allegedly reciting when he died in the Prague crypt. Pernwitz orders DNA analysis, primitive by modern standards, blood typing only. The results are possible, not confirmatory, but possible. And then there's the operational intelligence. Heinrich Wald demonstrably ran a sophisticated sabotage network. His black market fuel operation has been degrading Wehrmacht logistics for 6 months. The diluted fuel alone has contributed to an estimated 2,400 vehicle breakdowns. At a time when Germany desperately needs every truck, every tank operational for the Eastern Front collapse. This isn't some amateur partisan. This is someone with advanced training, someone who understands not just sabotage, but psychological operations, someone who knows how to disappear. Someone exactly like Jan Kubiš. November 8, 1944. The forensic team exhumes the grave at the Prague cemetery where Jan Kubiš was allegedly buried after the cathedral siege, court order signed by Pernwitz himself. The coffin contains a body. Male, approximately 30 years old, severe facial trauma consistent with grenade shrapnel, gunshot wound to the right temple, suicide. The problem, the body has been in the ground for 29 months. Significant decomposition. The fingerprints lifted in 1942 were taken in combat condition, partial smudged. The chain of custody on the physical evidence is questionable. And Pernwitz remembers something he'd forgotten. The cathedral crypt was flooded during the siege. Water damage to all 7 bodies. Identification had been rushed. They needed to show the public the assassins were dead, to end the reprisals, to restore order. What if, in that chaos, they'd identified the wrong body? What if Jan Kubiš walked out of Prague in June 1942 and everyone simply assumed he was dead because one of the 7 bodies had his papers? Pernwitz closes the exhumation file and stamps it. Inconclusive. But he knows. In his gut, he knows. The British are playing a game he doesn't fully understand, and Jan Kubiš, dead or alive, real or fabricated, has become more dangerous as a symbol than he ever was as a man. December 1st, 1944. Hitler himself demands resolution. The Heydrich assassination is sacred Nazi mythology. The martyred hero, the avenged death, the crushed uprising. The narrative cannot be uncertain, cannot be messy. The order comes down, execute the prisoner. Publicly, make it symbolic, close the case. Not as Heinrich Wald, black marketeer. As Jan Kubiš, the ghost made flesh. The assassin finally brought to justice. Whether he is or isn't doesn't matter anymore. The Reich needs the story. December 18, 1944. Plötzensee Prison, Berlin, 6:47 a.m. Let's return to where we began. The man they call Jan Kubiš stands before the executioner. The piano wire binds his wrists. The meat hooks glint in the pale morning light filtering through the basement window. The execution method is specific, slow hanging, not the quick drop that breaks the neck. These hooks suspend victims by piano wire around their necks, allowing them to strangle slowly, 10 to 15 minutes of suffocation while they're filmed. Hitler watches the footage, considers it justice. But Jan Kubiš is still smiling. The Gestapo photographer sets up his camera, a Leica 3, standard documentation equipment. He'll capture the final moments, evidence for the file and proof for history. At 6:51 a.m., the executioner places the wire around Kubiš's neck. Kubiš speaks first time in 3 hours, voice clear, strong. Kezbajsa hori zritili naivas. The guard translates for the official record. May the mountains fall upon you. It's not from a poem, it's from the book of Revelation, chapter 6, verse 6. The executioner pulls the lever. Here's what the official record states. Execution concluded at 7:04 a.m. Time of death, 13 minutes. Pronounced dead by prison physician Dr. Herman Gott. Body photographed. Fingerprints taken post-mortem, cremated same day. Ashes disposed of in unmarked location, per standard protocol for enemies of the state. File closed. Here's what the official record doesn't state. 3 hours after the execution, a radio operator at British SOE headquarters in London receives an encrypted transmission. Origin point somewhere in eastern Germany. The message is brief. Package delivered. Eagle has flown. Confirm receipt. The encryption key matches the one assigned to Jan Kubiš in 1942. The operator flags it for review. The file goes to Commander Harold Perkins' SOE Operations Division. He reads it twice. Then he burns it. Because the alternative, that Jan Kubiš was somehow transmitting 3 hours after his documented execution, is impossible. Unless the man hanging in Plötzensee Prison wasn't Jan Kubiš at all. Unless the real Jan Kubiš died in Prague in June 1942 and the British spent 2 years creating a ghost. False sightings, planted evidence, a carefully constructed legend designed to do one thing, make the Gestapo question their own victory. Or unless Jan Kubiš survived Prague and the man executed in Berlin was a willing sacrifice who took his name, his identity, his mission. Or unless something else happened, something so layered in deception and counter-deception that even 78 years later we still don't know the truth. December 19, 1944, Krakow resistance cell. The fuel depot sabotage continues. New operator, different face, same tactics. Wehrmacht vehicles keep breaking down. January 15th, 1945, Panwitz's office. The Obersturmbannführer receives another report. Resistance activity in Prague, someone distributing leaflets. Heydrich assassination anniversary coming up. The leaflets carry a signature. From the grave of 7. He orders the investigation shut down, files it under partisan propaganda. But late at night, alone in his office, Panwitz pulls the execution photographs and studies them, the man on the hook strangling, the smile frozen on his face, and he wonders. April 28, 1945, Berlin. The Red Army is 2 kilometers away. Soviet artillery shells are landing in the government district. Panwitz burns his files, 15 years of investigations, thousands of pages. The Kubiš file, every report, every interrogation transcript, every photograph goes into the fire. Some secrets, he decides, should die with the Reich. May 8, 1945. War's ended. In Czech villages liberated by American forces, stories begin to circulate, whispered in pubs, shared at kitchen tables. Stories about the 7 martyrs of St. Cyril and Methodius, about the man with the scarred face who died twice, about the ghost who fought the Nazis from beyond the grave. An old woman in Prague, Anna Moravkova, who sheltered resistance fighters during the war, tells an American war correspondent, Jan Kubiš, everyone knows Jan Kubiš died in 1942, but his spirit, she taps her chest, that never died. The Nazis could hang 1,000 men, but they couldn't hang an idea. So who was the man executed in Plötzensee Prison on December 18, 1944? British SOE archives, declassified in 2012, contain a file labeled Operation Anthropoid Post-Action Assessment. Most of it remains redacted, but one line is visible. Subject K neutralized Prague, June 18, 42. Subsequent sightings attributed to identity confusion and enemy counterintelligence. Case closed. But there's a handwritten note in the margin, initialed HP, Harold Perkins, or something we'll never admit. Czech resistance archives tell a different story. They claim Jan Kubiš died a hero in Prague, but that his identity was deliberately kept alive, used by multiple resistance fighters over the years as a nom de guerre, a shared identity. Whoever carried the name, carried the mission. The man in Berlin? According to this version, he was František Novak, a Czech resistance fighter who voluntarily took Kubiš's identity, knowing it would draw Gestapo attention, a sacrifice play. He died so others could operate freely. But František Novak's family has no record of him dying in 1944. They claim he survived the war, emigrated to Argentina, died in 1987. And then there's the third possibility, the one historians don't like to discuss because it's impossible to prove. That British intelligence ran an elaborate deception operation that Jan Kubiš died in Prague, but SOE kept his identity active in German intelligence circles specifically to create paranoia, to make the Gestapo waste resources chasing ghosts, to demonstrate that even dead, Allied agents couldn't be stopped. Psychological warfare, ghost soldiers, living legend. And maybe, just maybe, it worked precisely because the Gestapo wanted to believe, because arresting the Heydrich assassin in 1944 would make them look competent, would erase the embarrassment of letting him escape in 1942. So they convinced themselves, found the evidence they needed to find, executed a man who may or may not have been Jan Kubiš, and claimed victory over a ghost. In 2019, a metal detector enthusiast in eastern Germany found a corroded British-issue SOE radio transmitter buried in what used to be the Krakow fuel depot. The serial number traces to equipment issued to Operation Anthropoid operatives. The transmitter's last recorded use, according to soil analysis and corrosion patterns, December 1944, 3 hours after the execution at Plötzensee. The Nazis thought hanging him would break the resistance. They were wrong, because you can't kill a man who's already dead, and you can't execute an idea whose time has come. Jan Kubiš, whoever he truly was, whatever he truly did, became more dangerous as a symbol than he ever was as a soldier. The Reich hanged a body, but the legend kept fighting. And in the end, that's what resistance truly means, the refusal to die, even when they kill you. The identity of the man executed on December 18, 1944, remains disputed. British SOE files remain partially classified. The truth may never be fully known, but the resistance Jan Kubiš inspired, that part is undeniable.